are dedicated to three women who we lost recently. One, League of Women Voters U.S. President Deborah Ann Turner, and two longtime members of the League in North Dakota, Carol Zielinski and Kathy Hawken. Each represent the best of us. Their lives are powerful role models of the mission of the League to empower everyone to participate in our democracy. We thank all of you here tonight in joining us in that effort. The League of Women Voters, you see the sign here for Vote for One. We, along with Forum Communications, are creating a voter's guide for elections across the state of North Dakota, both for the June and November elections. Candidates, please look in your email or in your snail mail mailbox for an email or a letter asking you to fill out the answers to the Vote for One questions. And then these will be available throughout the state and throughout West Fargo, of course, and throughout the rest of the state for races across the state and through the voteforone.org website. And this will be going live on May the 9th for all voters. Let me give you a quick rundown for everybody to understand how we will proceed tonight. Questions are submitted by card. You will see volunteers with cards and with pens. You can ask for them, and then you can fill out, ask your question, then just hold it up. Somebody will come get it. They'll be screened for duplication and clarification, and then handed to me, and we will get to as many of them as possible. All questions will be answered by all of the candidates. And to begin tonight, we will have a 2-minute opening remark from each candidate, and then as the questions begin, each candidate will be getting 1 minute to answer the questions. And then at the conclusion of the question and answers, we will have a 1-minute closing remarks. We do have a timer with signs to help remind our candidates when their time is running down. And whenever you do hear the bell that your time is up, just complete your sentence or your thought, and then we'll move on to the next question. Ask me to repeat questions if you need to as we go along. And, I am reading what I'm being submitted. Our screeners will make it as clear as possible for as many questions as possible. We'll get as many as we can get in before we go to closing statements. We will start with Tyler Erickson with the first opening statement.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks to everybody for coming out, and thanks to the League for sponsoring and moderating the event. It's nice to see some familiar faces that got me into this seat to be able to talk to you tonight, and also some new faces that I haven't seen before. So my name is Tyler Erickson. I'm running for West Fargo City Commission because I believe that the city is at an inflection point in the way that it must begin to reconcile its desire for growth against its responsibility to its current residents and infrastructure needs. And I do believe that both of those goals can be simultaneously achieved, but to do so, moving forward, from my perspective, the city has to do three things. Number one, it needs to more closely examine the necessity of economic development incentives to in turn, hopefully on the back end, bring in more revenue to the city. And number two, it should foster a more desirable long-term working environment for city employees to in turn retain those employees for the long term, and there's a fiscal component to that as well. And number three, it's important that the city prioritize a whole of government approach by more closely and collaboratively working with its local brother and sister governmental entities in the area. If elected, I plan to address these three issues and work on these three issues as actively as possible so that we can more adequately fulfill those two goals of desirable growth and meeting our responsibility to our current residents and infrastructure needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Rory Jorgensen.
Thanks to the, excuse me, thanks to the League of Women Voters, Civic West, AARP, and all those in attendance for coming tonight to hear our thoughts and opinions. My name is Rory Jorgensen. I've been a lifelong resident of West Fargo, and I've watched West Fargo grow immensely over the years and excited to see that growth continue. I am currently a reconstruction manager for a restoration company and have always worked in the blue-collar field or industry, mostly in the construction field, managing numerous multi-million-dollar projects. I'm married to my wife, Rhonda Jorgensen, who is a 25-year veteran of the West Fargo Police Department. I served as a volunteer firefighter here for 25 years, ranking as high as the assistant chief on the city side and eventually the chief on the rural side. I'm continuing my commitment to the public service by running for a West Fargo City Commission seat. I've seen the growth of this town and had discussions with 2 previous mayors and several council members that experienced the burst of growth in the late 90s and 2000s about what they did right and what they did wrong. West Fargo is primed for growth, both residential and commercial. It goes hand in hand. You live where you work where you play where you live. Fargo is landlocked for commercial land, while West Fargo is primed for the growth and has numerous acres to the northwest, and will have another 500-plus acres once all the lagoons are completely decommissioned and filled. There's already serious interest from business owners about moving their businesses out of Fargo up to that property. We have a potential of a big manufacturer coming in, and they're down to making a decision between here and another place. I'm excited for the growth as business and home builders will take the dirt and make it more valuable, adding the tax base of West Fargo, especially the businesses who also bring sales tax. West Fargo is a very safe, clean, vibrant community, and if elected, I will strive to keep it that way by being open-minded, fiscally responsible, and transparent to the residents and businesses in this community.
Thank you. Deanne Reed.
Thank you, first of all, to the League of Women Voters, Civic West, and AARP for having this opportunity for the candidates to come before you and share what their vision is for West Fargo. You know, when I decided to run for West Fargo City Commissioner, it became very clear to me some of the issues that the city was facing, just talking to voters. And when I went out and knocked on doors, I believe that their statements reflect why I'm running. There's actually 3 reasons: specials, property taxes, and incentives. And when I knocked on doors and I asked voters how they felt, I'm just going to share their comments with you because I think they're actually very significant. One gentleman said to me, "Deanne, special assessments are like a revolving door. You never know when you're going to get hit with one." Another couple, they were elderly. They had moved here from Connecticut. And they said, "You know, we're new here. And in Connecticut, we just don't do special assessments. Typically, the developers are the ones that take on the infrastructure development." And they said, "You know, when we moved here, if we would have known that this is what happens, we would have never moved to West Fargo." They said, "Our neighbor across the street got their special assessments and their property taxes, and they said, 'That's it, we're out of here, we're putting our house on the market.'" And last, a Wisconsin builder who moved here, and he said, "In Wisconsin, we don't do special assessments, the developers take that on." He says, "I'm concerned about the direction for my kids." He says, "I have young daughters. And I'm concerned I'm going to be in this house for a very, very long time." And he says, "I have other things that I want to do for my kids." So the voters of West Fargo, they're concerned, and they're why I'm running.
Thank you. John Severson.
Good evening, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, Civic West, and AARP. My wife and I have lived in West Fargo for 13 years. We've seen the growth as well. On one of our streets, there was a farm there at the end of 9th Street. Now there's multi-million-dollar homes and a school. Managing that growth, I think, has been one of the biggest challenges that the city has faced. And when I was out knocking and talking to people, special assessments were definitely on everybody's mind, along with property taxes and financial accountability. I think the city needs to be more open and find the ways to make sure and ensure that the citizens that know what's happening with the financial statements. But I'd like to find ways to eliminate special assessments and find the city financial accountability by asking for a forensic audit. And I think the city needs to have its books laid out open so that the citizens are well aware and can tell exactly what is going on within the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Zundel.
Hello. Hard to go last after all these great introductions. My name is Amy Zundel. I am a resident of West Fargo for over 10 years now. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I am a wife. I'm a small business owner. I'm also an advocate for all things children and family in my off time. I decided to run because I found myself saying over and over again, I just wish somebody would do something about this. And whenever I catch myself saying that a lot, I ask myself if I can be that person. I decided that I had the skill set that might be part of the solution, I guess. I have very much a passion for public service, and I have a very vested interest in our community succeeding and doing well. I am someone who has lived in quote-unquote Old West Fargo and New West Fargo. I used to live right behind the VFW. I was a part of the Cheyenne Street renovation as a resident. I was a part of what all of that new development was like, and some of the ups and the downs, I think, of that process. I think during that process, I also felt like I really wish my voice mattered more. One of the reasons I want to run is to help earn back some of the spirit of people feeling like their voices matter, because I don't think people in West Fargo feel very heard right now. Overall, I'm just someone that wants to genuinely put people over politics. I want to have a sustainable and strategic growth plan as we move forward. I want to have a very transparent and objective special assessment policy that's predictable for the residents. And I look forward to the other questions and meeting everyone else tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, someone has given each of you a particular question just aimed at you. So that's what the questions I will start with. You, of course, everyone will get a chance to answer these questions as you see fit, given what is being asked. So, Rory, we go start with you first. And the question that asked to you is, do you know where Rue Avenue is in the city? R-U-E Avenue.
Yeah, it's over by, right off Cheyenne Street, I believe.
Have anything else to say?
No, it's an older part of town.
That was the question. Deanne?
Yeah, it's on an older part of town.
John?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Amy?
No, but it's going to be the first thing I look up when I leave here today.
Tyler?
No, but I do now.
Deanne, the question you're being asked is, what is the 2024 total city budget?
Wow, that's a good question. I have to think. You know what? I don't know if I know that off the top of my head. I don't.
John?
$37 million, I believe. I think that's up from $36 million the previous year.
I can't tell you whether you're right or not. Amy?
I was like looking for hints in the crowd. I think it's around $38 million. Either that or I'm missing a zero.
Tyler?
Yeah, I believe it's between $30 and $40 million.
Rory?
Just over that $35 million mark.
John, this is yours. What do you see as things that you can help to guide our city?
Can you repeat that, please?
What do you see as things that you can help to guide our city?
I think just bringing a leadership quality to I've been in leadership for a long time, and I think having open and honest communication and being available to the citizens, I think would make a huge difference. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just leadership. If you make a mistake, raise your hand and say we made a mistake and back up, but not being afraid of making a mistake, but trying to do the right thing.
Amy?
So I work full-time as a chiropractor, so my background is in science. I'm a very data-driven person. I like numbers because I think they tell a story and they allow for a chance to kind of evaluate to see how things have gone. One of the things I would really like to see more of in the city is some basically key performance indicators. How close are we to our goal? Do we need to change anything to keep kind of the ship on direction of where it's supposed to go? And I just really want to be an approachable, authentic voice for the people of West Fargo.
Tyler?
I think one of the important things to keep in mind, as a city commission, we're not a managerial group for the city employees. We're a leadership group. that provides guidance to the city employees. And if there's anything that I think that would be worthwhile to improve the city of West Fargo, is to address the turnover in the staff that we've been having. I'm a public employee. I know from a fiscal standpoint how expensive it is to lose employees and lose that institutional knowledge, and how that transfers over into lowering the quality of service that you're able to provide as a city to the residents that you serve. If I had to pick one specific thing, it's the staff turnover. I think that's going to be my main priority during my campaign and if I'm elected.
Rory,
Can you please repeat the question?
what do you see as things that you can help to guide our city?
Well, I'm very versed with being on the fire department for 25 years. I know the ins and out of that. Also with the police department, people said I should talk to Pete Nielsen, the chief. I've known Pete since I was 10 years old. I'm very versed on what the city workings are and where they need to be, and giving them the right tools to perform their job and keep West Fargo safe and keep moving forward.
Deanne?
Yeah, I think number one would probably be culture. You know, the culture of a city matters just like a business and or an organization. I think the other part of it too is long-term planning. I think one of the mechanisms that the city has used, which is the special assessment tool, has to change. I think I have a plan to be able to address that. And I think that the city employees, they know that. And I think that they're actually ready for some changes. And I think that's one thing that I can actually help with is, you know, helping with the culture, and then also to making sure that there's a plan in place that we can move forward on that's actually, you know, a good plan to do.
Thank you. Amy, this one is the one directed at you. What made you decide to run for office?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it goes back to just my introduction. I genuinely don't like to be the person on the sidelines critiquing how everything else is going. I have a very high attention to detail, and I'm kind of, I think, probably known by people who know me well as the squeaky wheel, who is kind of the continual person that's always following up on stuff. I just really want to see West Fargo to continue to grow and flourish into something that my children want to still be a part of, you know, long after I'm gone. And I'm just looking forward to seeing where the city grows.
Tyler?
To be completely candid, I consider myself to be a student in many areas of my life, and this is one of those specific areas. I'm looking forward to learning about the city of West Fargo and just the functionalities of municipal government. And so from a selfish point of view, I'm eager to learn about all of the different tools that we have to serve the residents. And then also in one of my other roles that I do on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis is I serve on the NDPERS Board of Trustees. And through that, I've learned that it's very valuable to have differing disciplines and differing perspectives on a governing board. And, you know, for PERS, for example, we have engineers, we have accountants, we have lawyers. I'm the only lawyer on there, but we have plenty of different perspectives, and there's strength in that. And so I'm hoping to provide that additional perspective, and I think that it could benefit the commission and the residents.
Rory?
Been talking to a lot of people for well over a year now, not only residents, but business owners that reside in town and business owners that don't reside in town. They don't feel that their voices are being heard enough, especially the ones that live out of town. I mean, they're paying property tax, they're bringing in sales tax. They like my openness, my fresh ideas, my positive solutions, and willingness to be hear what they have to say, and when they bring the problems along with the solutions and the bad, because if they think it's a great idea, somebody's not gonna. So I need to see both sides from their perspective.
Deanne?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I'm running is because I see the direction that West Fargo is going, and we're I think the second fastest growing city in the state, and which is a really good thing. But I think unmanaged growth is like a bad test tube experiment where it exudes its ability to be able to manage what you have in front of it. And I think what I'm hearing from the citizens is mostly, look, we're at a place, we just can't take any more property taxes, we can't take any more specials. And so I'm running just because of those two issues.
John?
I believe it was Special Assessment District 1263. That was the one that was being placed on our property, along with all my neighbors, a $4,000 special assessment. We started to push back on it, and it just got me involved, and rather than complain about it, I decided to throw my hat in the ring. Just complain about it.
Thank you. Tyler, this is the question directed at you. What abilities do you feel you can bring to the city?
So just to echo kind of the sentiment that I had in my last answer is I think I can provide a valuable perspective to the city commission. In my role as an attorney for the insurance department or as a fiduciary on the board of trustees for PERS, I'm really exposed to state level legal and policy issues there. And I think that daily, monthly experience, I think I can bring that valuable experience and that valuable perspective to the city commission. Although they do have very, at the state level, we're talking much more broader policy perspectives and issues. But here, I think those same fundamentals can be applied to infrastructure decisions, to any policy decisions that the commission's making. So,
Rory?
Well, I feel my ability to bring fresh ideas and, like I said, the positive solutions, being more open in my discussions with some of the city officials. I got an idea where you sit in the city council meetings and all you hear every week or every meeting, I didn't know this was going on. I didn't know this, I didn't know that. So I had an idea that I ran past Dustin Scott about a weekly newsletter. Say when all the meetings are, tell us when streets are closing. People just want to be more informed, and with the press of a button, they could send out an email to the 40,000 people that live there that want to sign up for that email.
Deanne?
You know, my background, I'm a former business owner, but I also used to work for the Omaha Chamber. And with my experience there, I saw some of the things the good things and the bad things that the Omaha Chamber did, and I was a part of watching the growth of the city at the same time. So I bring a different perspective of what that looks like being a part of the chamber.
John?
I think in my experience in business, and we've had to always look at ways to improve things and to be willing to tear things down if they needed to be, but always looking to find a better way to do things and to challenge the status quo. I think that's important within the city to try to find different ways instead of just going along to get along.
Amy?
It's a really great question. One of the perspectives that I think I didn't give enough credit to until I sat up here today really is truly being a part of new and old West Fargo, as everyone puts it. The renovation process of Cheyenne Street was incredibly frustrating to me. It was expensive. It turned into a neighborhood that I didn't move into in the first place. And I think the perspective of a resident who has been through large renovations in a city is very, very meaningful and impactful. I also think that Mayor Dardis does an amazing job advocating for West Fargo at the state level legislatively. I've done a lot of legislative work, and I'm very comfortable with that. I think if we're looking for any type of relief off of property taxes or special assessments, we're going to have to ask the state to come to the table. On top of that, I have served on numerous boards, and I'm very familiar with all of the alternative funding sources of grants at the local, state, federal levels. So,
Thank you. Okay, Rory, we get a new question, starting with you. Americans over 65 are the fastest growing segment of the population in the U.S., and research shows that most want to remain in their homes and communities as they age. Having access to safe, walkable streets for people of all ages is an important part of that. What would you do to ensure that transportation options are varied, safe, affordable, and user-friendly?
Well, we need to work with our partners as far as the busing, as far as the infrastructure. The city's doing a project right now that it's not actually getting taxed to the citizens in the older part of West Fargo, and a lot of people there are on fixed incomes, and that's their biggest concern. I mean, it's everybody's concern. Everybody lives by their budget, and we need to keep doing that. But bringing the quality of life in West Fargo, I asked that question. What can West Fargo do to improve your quality of life here? And about everybody struggled on that answer. I mean, West Fargo, Horace, it's a great place to live.
Deanne?
Yeah, I think you're talking about a quality of life issue for those individuals. And I think the one thing that I've walked away after having conversations with particularly some of the older generation is expendable income begins to dwindle as you age. And being able to have those resources in pocket matters. You know, the city can definitely work with partners that are throughout the metropolitan area, but I think giving seniors the relief that they know that they can stay in their home and not be specially assessed out of their house, because that is a concern for a lot of them too. So I think if we start addressing some of those issues with the special assessments, expendable income will be a significant place where we can start for seniors.
John?
Quality of life, I don't know that the city provides you a quality of life. I think you make a quality of life yourself. And I think if you've worked 30 years and you've paid off your home, but then you find yourself with property taxes higher than you can afford to stay in there once you get on a fixed income, I think that definitely impacts your quality of life. So I think if the city reducing its debt, eliminating any waste within the city will increase the citizens' quality of life just by the fact of not being involved in their life.
Amy?
So I think, as Deanne said, one of the things that we have to address first is affordability for people to stay in their homes, especially in the core area. I mean, the potential to be special assessed is upwards of 25 to 50% of people's homes, home value, if they were to fully special assess in ways that we have done past. And I know the city is very actively looking for solutions to that. I also serve on the Cass County Sheriff Reserve Unit as a Sheriff Reserve Unit deputy. I think the other thing that I find very valuable as a core belief is that you can have all of the amenities in the world, but unless you have a safe community, you're not going to want to access any of them. So I think at the foundation of a community's success is always its care for its residents and the safety of everybody around them.
Tyler?
Can I request clarification? Is it specifically regarding public transportation?
Having access to safe, walkable streets for people of all ages is an important part. What would you do to ensure the transportation options are varied, safe, affordable, and user-friendly?
Okay, thank you. I would start with, I think this is a good question that illustrates the issues that cities and municipalities have to struggle with. You are stuck between providing adequate services and doing it in a fiscally prudent way. I think maybe because of the interconnectedness between Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, we could maybe partnership with the other governmental entities and political subs and to hope maybe spread out that cost and increase the value of the services that we are able to provide the residents. On another note, I'm intimately familiar with the challenges that older, 60-year-old, 60 years and older, that demographic, those challenges that they struggle with on a daily basis. My parents are in their mid-60s, and they're facing all sorts of challenges. So I'm very, it's one of those things that I'm want to remain cognizant of in every decision that I make.
Thank you. Rory?
So to improve the public transportation and stuff, I mean, we have a great police force. The city just received a grant to put in a walking path over behind Costco, over RJ's Conoco. The parks here are great. That's about all I got.
I apologize, everyone. I gave Rory a second shot. I got lost in my own. But we start with Diane with the next question. So much emphasis is placed on growth, building new. What is your position on investing in older neighborhoods and infrastructure repairs?
That's a great question. So yeah, I have a plan that I feel like is very doable. I think one of the things that the city can actually look at long-term is, our budget's $35 million to run the city. What do we need from property owners to be able to meet that need? Is it 4%? Is it 5%? And then from that, be able to determine what projects we need to set up first. And I think the city's actually got a plan in place right now where they're trying to look long-term to do that. But to have that funnel of money, that money coming in that they can have access to on a regular basis actually does do some relief for the special assessment piece of it. And so, there's some other things, some components that we can add to that too. Do we need to think about adding a utility fee to our utility bill? Is it $10? I don't know. But that can actually add a coffer, a place for us to be able to have some money that we can actually come in and tap into.
Thank you. John?
I know we talk a lot about Old West Fargo and New West Fargo, but I think it's all just really is West Fargo. I think we need to look at not just taking care of the growth in the new areas. You have to always maintain the old stuff. The older part of town is just as important as the newer parts of town. And when you talk about growth, if you blow up a balloon, sooner or later it's going to pop if you let it go too big. So I think you need to maintain the growth and do it strategically and do it so that you're not overextending.
Amy?
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
So much emphasis is placed on growth, building new. What is your position on investing in older neighborhoods and infrastructure repairs?
Sure. So again, I really circle back to, I think it's pivotal that we prioritize our current residents. I think that we have $543 million of core area infrastructure improvements that we can do. I think our schools are very near capacity, and there was a recent, failed bond referendum, and we need solutions for that. So I'm more focused on fixing what we currently have to fix. I think part of the difficulty on a commission is balancing that very narrow line of when is it good to do preventative maintenance so that we're saving money in the very long term versus what we're charging in the short term. So I think just very carefully looking at when we're doing things and why is going to be important.
Thank you. Tyler?
I think one of the main things to keep in mind when we're making decisions about current infrastructure is we have to be able to sell the idea to the current residents in the way that they understand that it's in their best interest to get these things done quickly and early. Because if they don't, on the back end, how much it's going to cost the city and them as a resident cost share in the infrastructure maintenance. I think that at ground zero, it has to be sold. If we make a decision as the commission not to maintain those infrastructure needs, then ultimately it's the resident on the back end who will suffer, I believe. So, balancing that with our special assessment, a lack of appetite for special assessments, I think that's one of the main. That's what everybody's talking about around the state, where specials are controversial. And to do that in a responsible way, I think it all starts with telling the residents that it's in their best interest.
And Rory?
Well, West Fargo needs to keep maintaining the existing parts of town. Those people lived here, they built the town. And when it comes to special assessments, I could see if we could spread them out to a larger area. I mean, how many roads do you use that, when it comes to special assessment, that you don't get billed for? I live way on the north end of town. When those roads up there get redone, I'd like to see the 4 big businesses that have beat that road up with all their semi-traffic. But the citizens up there are going to be the ones taking the brunt of it. It should be assessed differently between businesses and residential.
Thank you. John, we start with you. West Fargo does not have a senior center. How could the city help to create a senior center? How can you help?
I guess you can always fund a senior center, but I think there probably are areas there's probably an opportunity at the new WEX building, or maybe in the police department here when they redo the police department, to add a senior center or a senior area.
Amy?
So I think this is a great question, primarily because we know how important a sense of community and maintaining friendships are for people as they age. It's so important for their health. I think one of the best ways to address some of this stuff would be through some of that private grant funding. I think there are endless sources of grants to find out there, everything from private business grants to state grants to federal grants. Perhaps finding something there would be a great place to start for money. And then in the meantime, just ensuring that any gaps in services we have, we can address them.
Tyler?
I think one of the main things to keep in mind is that no matter where you go around the country, we have an aging population, and to stay cognizant of the challenges on a community size level to address those things. I am generally, from my opening, I'm generally against, at this point in time, economic development incentives. But, in light of the fact that I don't exactly know what a senior center is, if we could have that defined, I'm not really sure what that is. That would be one of those particular projects where I think that a economic development incentive would be more than worthwhile to help put something like that together.
Rory?
No, I strongly agree that a senior center is needed. Also with a community center, people have asked for years, why doesn't West Fargo have a community center where they can go rent it out or do things? When I was on the fire department, we had numerous people wanted to use our facilities. We had a big meeting room. It was wide open. You look at what Dilworth had in their community center and their senior center over there. Now they're building their new city hall and they're putting one in there. So it's definitely a huge need, and that's why we listen into the elder residents and listen to what their needs and try to make it feasible for them.
Deanne?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be the dissenting voice on this, just because I always go back to, we had a referendum that was just recently, the school wanted to pass. And one of the things that I heard from the citizens was, it's too much, we can't afford it. And so I guess I would go to, is it on the plate of the city commission to be able to say, we need to add one more thing to our plate right now financially? So, and I get it. I had aging parents. My husband's mom's almost 85. She'll be 85 this year. But I'm just curious, is this really something that we want to be able, because the funding has to come from somewhere, and it's ultimately going to come from the citizens of West Fargo. So I think we need to think about, is that a path we really want to take?
Thank you. Amy, we start with you with the next question. Will you support establishing a new library in West Fargo, like the new Moorhead Library?
I will be the first to say I do not know anything about the new Moorhead Library. I am happy that the West Fargo Library has a new place in the WEX building coming up. I've been to their events. I think the library is extremely well attended. I think this, again, circles back to something that Deanne said, is how are we going to fund it? Currently, I don't think we have the money in our budget to fund a brand new library. I think that having two separate locations is a great way to start. As the city continues to grow, we have to keep in mind access and how people are able to get to the library and the public transportation stuff. So at this point, I'm interested to see how two libraries go, ensuring that, see how that fits for size, and perhaps side plating that until the future, till our budget stabilizes a little bit.
Tyler?
I think that to commend the current administration, I think that what we're doing right now is a very effective use of the space in a prudent way. Just right down the street, the library that we have, my wife and I, we go there with our kids. We try to make it there once a weekend, and we have everything that we need there. We have the books, we have the space. It's, I believe, ADA compliant. I actually don't think that there's a ramp to get up, but there's some challenges there that we have. But for the most part, that I think fulfills all our needs. I think if there's anything worthwhile to put public money towards, it's a library. But given all of the challenges that we have, I don't think that is a financially prudent thing to be investing in right now.
Rory?
Yeah, I really don't know much about the library either, and how much people actually use it, and what's the feasibility of it. I mean, what does the library don't have right now that they need? It seems like a lot of people go there, so there must be ample products and room for them. So, and again, it comes back down to being fiscally responsible to, I'm a fireman. I'll be the first one saying that Taj Mahal shouldn't have been built. So we don't need high glitz and glamour buildings for the kids and the adults.
Deanne?
Yeah, there's always trade-offs, right? And the citizens are the ones that are usually getting the trade-offs. And it always goes back to funding. There's always got to be some funding mechanism to do it. And so, our kids grew up in the library. We read to them every night. Dave read our kids great books, Lord of the Rings, all those things. They're really very well educated. They love the library. But I always go back to, you always have to have trade-offs. Is it in the budget of the city to be able to say to citizens, we can add one more thing to your plate right now? And I just don't think that that's a very good trajectory for us right now.
John?
Libraries are a wonderful thing, but no, I don't think it's in the budget. I just don't think it is.
Tyler, we start with you now. As housing costs continue to increase, older adults are unable to find housing to meet their needs when seeking to downsize and thus are being pushed out of communities and homes they have lived in for generations. What would you do to ensure the creation of affordable housing options such as accessory dwelling units, duplexes, courtyard apartments, and townhomes?
I think I know you're going to hear a reoccurring theme in what I say, and really, right, that theme is, what do we have as tools within our purview as a city commission to help that address that problem, right? And as a city commission, we have spending authority, we have zoning authority, we have, I'm trying to think what else we would really have other than those things, but to help address that issue specifically, and then maybe some, incentive work to get it done quickly. But, the affordable housing issue, it's a national issue. It's everywhere. Interest rates are high, borrowing rates are high. Obviously, the big I word, inflation, that nobody likes to hear, that's happening to everybody. And, to me, again, I'm a student of learning the tools of what we can do as a city commission to help alleviate that problem. And the duplexes, the multi-housing or the multifamily units, that's definitely something that I am interested in looking into.
Rory?
Well, we're looking right now, we don't have any dirt to build on in this town, so we need to expand. The vacancy rate in apartments is 2%. If we can expand and build some affordable housing in our current dirt, it takes the price of the dirt and goes from, what's land over here, like $12,000 an acre now, and if we can put $150,000 to $300,000 homes, it's going to increase the tax base. It's also going to create more work for the city employees, but if we can control that growth, I think it'll help everything. And then that tax incentive for the first $150,000, you go to the city meetings, and Moorhead and Dilworth just laugh because theirs is unlimited. I mean, they're more than welcome to take people over there.
Deanne?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to beat a dead horse, but special assessments, you guys, as you age, when you get into your 70s, I mean, I've heard stories of families where their mom and dad had to move out because of special assessments. So, I believe wholeheartedly that as you age, you want to stay in your house, and one of the best ways that we can do that is maybe at some point, and this maybe has to do with the legislature, we need to start looking, do people over 70 years of age need to be just exempt from property taxes and special assessments? Because they do need to stay in their house. They're going to be on a fixed income for a long period of time. And so if our goal is to want to keep them in their homes, we have to do something that's on that level. And granted, there are zoning issues that we can actually look into, but I think if we want our residents to stay longer in their homes, we need to start looking at those two things.
John?
What's affordable housing? If somebody builds an apartment building or duplexes, that I don't know that that's going to be any more affordable than to stay in their own home. I think the addressing with the legislature, try to reduce or eliminate property taxes, eliminate special assessments. I think if you can stay in your home, that's the best way to do it. I think that would be the affordable home.
Amy?
Yeah, I'm going to agree that I don't know that moving out of your home is more affordable. I mean, I talk to people who are living in new development apartments that are paying $500 more than my mortgage on a 3,000 square foot house. I think that I would love to see more private programs continue to pop up. The Gate City Bank has kind of that a low interest home improvement, incentive to, or low interest rate to kind of fix anything in a home that needs to be broken or it needs to be fixed. I also think that it would be interesting to shift away from the new home tax exemption. Perhaps we can look into doing things where, again, we're providing some property tax relief for those people to stay in their homes as opposed to move out of our homes. But as far as accessory buildings, this was something that did come up when I was getting signatures, and pretty much everybody I talked to was very much not interested in that.
Thank you. Sort of continuing along similar themes here now, Rory. You get to start with this one. Property taxes are continuing to rise. How can the city help to lower them or give seniors a break?
That's a very good question, because about a year ago, I stood in front of the city council and my property went up 36%. I was not real happy, and you hear it from a lot of residents. But looking back, my house is what it's valued, is what it is. I agree to it. The issue was my house wasn't last assessed in 2011. So there was a 12-year lapse. That's the reason for the jump, and like I said, the value they assessed it at is the true value. I'm fine with that. But if it could go up and get assessed more often at smaller amounts, smaller increments, I think that's more stomachable. You know, like you said, 36%, and some of you know my demeanor when I stood there, I go, my house went up 36%, but the city gave my wife a 4% cost of living raise. It doesn't add up.
Deanne?
Yeah, you know, property taxes are such a huge thing for people right now, and I've heard the same thing too, the 30% sometimes increase in property taxes. I think the city needs to start looking at long-term planning and move away from special assessments, because special assessments inflate the market and they create an erratic market for homeowners. And I think one way we can do that, again, I go back to that, what do we need to run a city? Is it $35 million? Fine. What do we need from that, from property taxes, to be able to fund the city, all the infrastructure development? Because over time, what the city is going to be able to do is they're going to have a bank of money. And that bank of money will lower the cost over the long term for citizens. And if property values rise, then mill levels should drop. And it should be a seesaw act, right? So I think there's a way to do that, but I always go back to that, is if we're not stewarding the growth well in our area, which we're going to continue to grow, we're going to be in this constant predicament where property taxes are going to rise because we're not managing growth very well.
John?
The city's debt load on special assessments, or the city's debt load, is $342 million currently, roughly. That's a little over $8,000 per every man, woman, and child in West Fargo. I think if you can eliminate the debt, then you don't need to have as high, the property taxes can go down and just be reduced. So I think that would be probably the best way to do it. Eliminate the city's debt.
Amy?
So obviously, the North Dakota Century Code sets our current equalization process, how our homes have to be evaluated. So at a city level, you know, we can't really necessarily control property taxes. We obviously control the mills. One thing that I don't think West Fargo gets enough credit for is we've actually decreased our mills 13% over the last 10 years. So I do think the city is working very, very, very hard to keep this affordable. That being said, my concern with property tax elimination, I know that's on the ballot this year, is that the money has to come from somewhere, right? Sales tax is problematic because I think it would disincentivize commercial extra buildings, which I think is really what West Fargo needs to help pay for some of this infrastructure development. And I also think sales tax makes it more difficult for lower income families and those on a fixed income. So overall, I think property taxes, no one likes them. They are what they are. They're a funding mechanism. I think they're probably the least evils of all the evils that currently exist. So overall, I think West Fargo is doing what they can currently.
Tyler?
So your question relates to city property taxes, and that's what's within our purview as the city. The city only charges 25% of your tax bill. When you receive that at the end of the year, you only 25% of that bill is city taxes. That's right. There's 75% of the bill that isn't within the city's purview. So if we're lumping special assessments into the conversation of property taxes, special assessments are absolutely necessary for local control. Local control of school boards, park boards. Our city, they're necessary in the way that because we have local control, we can control them. And I hesitate to adopt the idea and mentality that we always have to be making our decisions with the idea and anticipation that we're going to be getting state relief. This is a local issue, and it requires local solutions, and that's what we have to find.
Deanne, we start with you on the next question. With as fast as our city is growing, how do you plan on supporting emergency services to keep up with increasing call volume and ensure we have appropriate response times?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it really, you know, how you manage that really is through the budget. And my fear, after talking with city and, you know, the police department and whatnot, is that we won't be able to keep up with that growth. And I think part of it goes back to how are we going to manage when the diversion comes out? Are we going to just do what we've done before, which is not manage it very well? And so I am concerned about that. I think that's going to have to come back to the city budget, because obviously that's where the funding mechanisms are going to come from. And it is a concern that I have.
John?
I think we need to always be looking at that, but the city fire department their call response times are tremendous. The city fire department is doing a fantastic job. The city police department doing a fantastic job. As the city expands, or we go north, or we find these things, we just have to find ways to maintain that, whether that's maybe adding police substations someplace, or but and adding fire stations if we need to, substations in the fire department. But I think the police and fire are doing a fantastic job in the city.
Amy?
So my husband actually works full-time in law enforcement, so this concern is very near and dear to our family's heart. I think that some of the things that go unnoticed are that when the fire department makes like upgrades in what they're doing, your home insurance costs go down. Some of how you're getting charged is based on how quickly the fire department can get to your structure in case something happens. Everything that the West Fargo Fire Department currently that they're doing is truly lowering your home insurance rates, even though you may not feel like that right now. That being said, I also have been on the scene as an EMT and a first responder. When it's your loved one that is waiting for an ambulance or a fire person or someone with an AED, those minutes are incredibly crucial and they feel like they take forever. So I think the best thing we can do is be proactive in how we're addressing this and anticipating the growth as opposed to being reactive. And I also think that it would be smart to continue the current sales tax that we have in place to address public safety. I think it's the foundation of everything that we have as a community.
Tyler?
Regards to public safety, police call times and wait times, and fire call and wait times, while I generally agree with the sentiment that that additional fire department out by the Packer High School, right, is definitely a large cost to the city, that access to that those residents have, as Amy alluded to, definitely help reduce the sting of your insurance rates, because the response times are lessened. And it all has to do with the ISO rating of the fire department. And so so in addition to those challenges, right, if you're talking about increased access and wait times, it begins with hiring and retaining good employees for the long term, and making sure that the response times in the conversation of access to the fire department, that those are all addressed timely.
Rory?
No, they're exactly right. I sat on a board that did, your insurance is off your ISO rating, and every company is different. One is the only care is how close is the nearest hydrant. There's numerous things that go into it. The amount of vehicles you get there, the amount of water you can sustainably pump for an hour. But the central building a new fire hall, it needs to be different than this one. This one's landlocked a half a block or a block away. You need that circle of a mile and a half. You look where Fargo Place is there strategically. And if a guy builds a new fire hall, I know down at the one south, the police department has a couple offices, so they could kind of co-partner on that. Another thing that needs to change is North Dakota PERS changed last year for the highway patrol, and I think it's the BCI. Their rates of retirement are better. So it's a better incentive to be a highway patrolman and a BCI. They can retire quicker. And I mean, it's a stressful job. I mean, I've seen it, my wife's seen it. So I think both leaders of the police and fire do a great job, and it's going to continue, but it's going to be always, that cost is always there.
Thank you. John, we'll start with you. Do you think the public should have more opportunities to be involved in city government? How could that be done?
I think they do. I think in our constitutional republic, we need more people involved. Citizens need to be involved. It's imperative. I think the city website has a lot of information on it, but I don't know that it's as approachable as it could feel. I mean, you got to kind of dig for things in there. Even when running for commissioner, I've had to really spend a lot of time trying to dig in and get some of that information. So I think, I'm not exactly sure how you would make it more open or more, but I think there's a lot of commissions that need people to be on them, the library commission, the park board. I just think people should get involved.
Amy?
So I think a repetitive theme that I heard is that people don't come to meetings or really voice their opinion or show up to be a part of it because they don't feel like it matters. So I think that your voice matters very much as a citizen, and I want to work very hard so that everyone feels that their voice does matter and they are heard. I think that some of the other barriers that people experience when they're talking about coming to meetings is that they're at the same time as a lot of other meetings. Monday nights at 5:30 are a very challenging time for people to access meetings, so I love that we record them and they're available. I wish everything that we had as a meeting was recorded and available so people could always follow up with that. I think that Civic West, part of our sponsors tonight, are doing great. They're talking about doing a Citizen Academy. I think that would be amazing for people to learn more about it. And I think there are opportunities for things, like a monthly coffee with commissioners. Perhaps we can create some type of more accessibility for people to, again, have those conversations and feel like they can be involved and that their voice is heard.
Tyler?
I'll start with, on the website, on the City of West Fargo's website, I was curious to know who was on the Board of Equalization that sets the assessment rates and has those conversations. And I believe there's 2 residents that can be either appointed or elected to the Board of Equalization. I think there's plenty of opportunities for people to be engaged and be involved with their city government. It really starts at an individual level, though, to have that desire and have the time commitment to be able to do that. I also, another gold star to the commission, right? They allow the 2-minute public comment piece as part of their city commission meetings. I'm a firm believer in the First Amendment. It's not an absolute right, and I don't believe that the city has to allow them, residents to come up and do that, is my understanding. And they still allow people to come up and voice their concerns. I think it's a fundamental piece of democracy at the local level. And so I think we're doing great.
Rory?
Can you please repeat the question?
Do you think the public should have more opportunities to be involved in city government? How could that be done?
Well, I mean, us 5 are proof right here. We're trying to run for that positions that are available. All these fine folks in the audience that took time out of their busy schedules away from their kids to come here, answer the questions, and get informed and make a great decision when it comes June 11th. I think being more transparent, like I said, I mentioned that newsletter going out earlier. Here's what times you can be here, and give them more than one option for a meeting. If there's got to be 2, and also, again, the 2.5-minute open forum, there's hardly anybody that gets up and talks, but you go to the coffee shop or the tavern, they got all the answers, and they don't come and get to what's really in front of them.
Deanne?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I love it actually because we were talking about an aging population here in North Dakota. And many of our retirees they are former city engineers themselves. They are MIT graduates, they are business owners, they are real estate developers, and a lot of those guys have a lot of good answers to some of the directions that we actually need. And so you put those bright individuals in a room, and I know that they can help come up with a plan that what we need to do to help to move West Fargo to where we need to be as far as the growth. And I think maybe we may need to think about, do we need to do advisory boards with those individuals so they can help with the long-term planning?
Amy, we start with you with the next question. The city of West Fargo doesn't have a large indoor auditorium for concerts and lectures. How can we get that facility?
I think that this would be a private business entity that would step up to the plate to do this. Again, we hear over and over again that people just don't want to fund stuff. I mean, we're turning down bond referendums for schools that are almost at capacity. And everybody is saying over and over again that enough is enough. So while I value that, I think, I love the concert area at the lights. I love that we have Blue Stem across the river. I love that we have many areas for things like this. We have NDSU. I think there are many opportunities to have that currently exist. Shields Arena. I don't think that that's the responsibility of the city, and I would encourage if there's an interest for that a private developer be the one to do that.
Tyler?
I think that most people are familiar with the lights too, and I think that that would be that's one thing that the county school board and the city commission have agreed to go forward with a tax incentive financing type of financing tool, and so that would, I think, fulfill that goal and fulfill that need. I was happy to hear during one of the last commission meetings that there was one of the commissioners tried to highlight the fact that it's important that the private businesses try to find private grants or other private funding so that we aren't losing out on that backside revenue with the TIF for so long, because the revenue is something that we definitely need now, because there's so many projects that need to be done, and it can't be overstressed how important that is to get that revenue.
Rory?
Well, I completely agree with most of the people on the panel. It has to be a privately funded deal. I mean, the city, when they took over the dome, it was in the red for years. So I know another event center would bring a lot of revenue, sales tax, lodging tax into town, but other than maybe an incentive on the property, I think it's totally private.
Deanne?
Yeah, that needs to be privately funded.
John?
It's a private sector issue, but I mean, you have Shields Arena, you have the Fargo Dome, you have Blue Stem. There's plenty of opportunities for concerts, the lights. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities around, but I think anything extra would be privately done.
We're going to do one more question. I thank everybody in the audience for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to yours. Do talk to the candidates afterwards. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer your question. This will be our 15th question. So you all done very well. Take a little drink if you need to. And then we'll go into closing statements after this. And we start with Tyler. The current commission recently voted against an annual review of the home buyer's 2-year tax abatement. If elected, do you agree this is an item/issue that should be reviewed?
I'd need more than a minute to talk about this, but I do agree that I think that the abatement should be revisited on an annual basis. Again, thinking about if we're incentivizing people based on a 2-year incentive to make a 20 to 25-year decision, that's a great idea. But if that incentive isn't the reason people are buying homes, right? The question comes to, is it necessary to have it all? And I know that the idea, I'm sure, I don't know the other commissioners' views, but I'm sure we have to remain competitive with other municipalities in the area. And so, so that's a glaring concern or challenge that we have to address. I do think I would be in favor of revisiting that on an annual basis. I think anytime we have an opportunity to bring more revenue into the city, I think that should be looked at as often as possible.
Rory?
I completely agree with the 2-year tax abatement, but it's a 2-year tax abatement. It's not a yearly tax abatement. So after the first year, we're going to take the money back from the people. So if it's every 2 years, but there's so many every year, how do you address it individually? So I think it's working the way it is, and keep it as is, because if I've built a house and all of a sudden in 1 year, well, your tax abatement's up, we changed our mind. You'd have a lot of mad people at you.
Deanne?
I think we need to start asking ourselves, what are we incentivizing? Are we incentivizing people just to purchase a house? Because part of the problem with that, a new home, is that when people get into a new home, if the house is $300,000 and the incentives or the specials that are added to it are, let's just say, $50,000, what we're doing unintentionally is we're slowly eroding the core of the city. Because it used to be, at least when I was growing, in my earlier years, when I was raising a family, you purchased an older home. And that older home then got fixed, by the family. And I'm concerned that we're actually eroding the city by doing these incentives this way, because it's basically getting homeowners into homes they can't afford later on in life. And then they get, after that 2-year tax abatement is up, they get that bill. And I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of people saying, I'm out of here. It's too expensive. And so I think we need to ask ourselves, like I said, what are we doing and what are we incentivizing? We need to think about that.
John?
I agree. I'm not against a yearly review, but I don't think it should be. If you've given a 2-year tax abatement, it should be, that's it, you got a 2-year tax abatement. I think what we should really do is just eliminate the tax abatement. You're taking money from new growth and you're incentivizing that while we're trying to special assess, old West Fargo and make them pay, way more than they should be for this, what's gonna have to be done. I just think you should do away with the incentive completely.
Amy?
So I think incentives, like anything, are a tool. They're not inherently good or bad. They're just something that we should continually assess on if they're being applied appropriately. I have yet to meet someone who said they moved to West Fargo because of the, property tax abatement. Obviously, everybody around here has that, so we're not necessarily unique, but I think West Fargo has its own appeal to people. They want to be here for our schools and our community and how we are different than the people that are around us. I think right now we definitely need to be focusing on growing our commercial tax base and ways to do that. So again, overall in the long term, we can take some of this stress off the residents to pay for ongoing infrastructure through things like sales tax. So I absolutely think it should be reviewed annually. The people that have them that are in currently, of course, I think we should honor whatever they've been given existing, but absolutely continually reviewed.
Rory, you get to have the first closing statement.
Well, again, I'd like to thank all the hosts. I appreciate all those that attended tonight and having the opportunity to listen to your concerns and answer some of your questions. I will stay around after we are completed to answer or discuss anything else you'd like to hear my response or view on. My goal is to focus on the growth, the fiscal responsibility, and common sense within the city government. I want to bring fresh ideas, positive solutions, and openness to listen to the ideas and concerns of the taxpayers of this great town. West Fargo is heading for sizable growth in the incoming years. As a council member, I would aim to make it happen physically and financially with a well-laid-out plan. I've been talking to realtors, developers, builders to hear what their customers are looking for as we can get in front of what their needs and wants are going to be. West Fargo still needs to keep maintaining the existing parts of the city at a financial responsible rate. I think they're trying to do that now with that sewer that they're doing. I think there's ways that the state can assist us with lower end loans. I mean, the legacy fund, it's for a rainy day, but it's been raining for how many years? That thing hasn't shed a drop. Just one closing deal. In closing, I greatly appreciate your opportunity for your vote. I applaud all the members here for their knowledge today. And being the next city council member and having the opportunity to keep making West Fargo a great place to live, play, and work and do business.
Deanne?
Yeah, thanks AARP, Civic West, and the League of Women Voters for giving us the opportunity to share with you guys today what our visions are for West Fargo. The city has one specific role, and it's to provide essential services, and that's really just pretty much the role of the city. And I think the other role of the city is to keep things low, sustainable, and predictable when it comes to our taxes. Because right now we're creating an erratic market for home owners and for business owners. And so I think if we as a city start to think long-term about the growth and how we're going to manage it, we're going to attract more businesses to this area, I think, and we keep taxes low, I think we'll be in a better spot.
John?
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, especially in the audience who came and sat through this. I think West Fargo is a fantastic place to live. I've lived in big cities, I've lived in small cities, and West Fargo is one of the best I've ever lived in. I think we need to try to focus on maintaining where it's at while still looking at future opportunities. But I think just controlling the growth, expanding growth with financial accountability to it, I think is one of the things that I would like to see happen. But I'd like to maintain the West Fargo way of life long into the future. Thank you.
Amy?
Thank you so much, everybody who showed up today and asked questions. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to meet all of the residents I've met in getting signatures and showing up to events like this. I've seen parts of West Fargo that I didn't know existed. As question 1 demonstrated, there is still lots to learn in that category, and I'll be finding that map afterwards. But overall, it was really important to me to run an authentic campaign. I wanted to show up as who I am authentically and to not make promises I didn't think I could keep. I've worked very hard to be informed on the things that are going on in the city. To avoid doing that, I think there's always something new to learn. And my only campaign promise that I really insist on making is that if elected, I'm going to show up and I'm going to work hard. I want to show up. I want to hit the ground running. I want to show up and be here for you. And I want to be available and there and be a part of a continual, I don't want to say brighter West Fargo, but continue on having West Fargo be a great place to live. So if you did not get your questions answered after, please come find me. I would love to chat with you about any of your concerns. And most importantly, and I'm sure I don't have to tell anybody in this room or anybody who's watching this, but please turn out and vote so that your voices are heard.
And Tyler.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thanks again to the League for moderating this event. I have lived in almost every major city, arguably, in North Dakota. And my wife and I, a year ago, we chose to move to West Fargo because we were excited about the opportunity that we had for ourselves and for our children here in this city. And despite over the last couple of months learning about all the challenges that we have as a city and as a community, I'm still excited for my family's future in this community. In my professional life, I work as a fiduciary every day. And to work as a fiduciary means that you're simply in the business of making decisions in the best interests of others with diligence and prudence. I similarly view the role as a city commissioner the same way. Simply to make decisions in the best interests of all with no favoritism so that we can all move together towards one common goal. If elected, I plan to work on behalf of all of the residents of West Fargo so that we can continue being a desirable place where people are excited to build their futures and grow their families. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our co-sponsors tonight, to all of our volunteers, to our lovely audience for your participation. I want to nudge the candidates once more about 411 questions. Please look for that email and/or letter from it'll either say Vote 411 or it might say League of Women Voters North Dakota Vote 411. And also nudge the audience members to go to vote411.org to see, as it opens up on May the 9th, to see questions answered from candidates across the state. As many as we can get to answer them. We will be putting them up here. A quick reminder, we do have two more coming up next week in Fargo. On Monday will be the Fargo Port Board and the Fargo School Board at 6 o'clock. And then in the Fargo City Commission chambers. And on Wednesday at the same time and place will be forums for Cass County Commission District 5 and Fargo City Commission. See more on the League of Women Voters Red River Valley Sports Facebook page. And I want all of us to please give these wonderful candidates, these people who have given their time and effort to expand our democracy, a great round of applause to finish tonight.
Good job, Tyler.